Welcome to the Farming on Purpose podcast, a podcast for farmers and ranchers ready to shift for a stronger future. Today's challenges in agriculture are new, but the grit and determination required to be successful are not. On the Farming on Purpose podcast, you'll hear how producers of all sizes and practices are moving mountains for things they believe in, all in the name of an industry that keeps growing and innovating for a stronger food system and stronger farm families. I'm your host, Lexi Wright, and I'm excited to discuss where producers are finding success, challenging the status quo, striving for better, and keeping our heritage alive, all while producing the food we depend on. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I hope your summer is going well. We just finished up wheat harvest this weekend, and it was a really good wheat harvest for us. So we are extra thankful, and we're enjoying lots of summer fun activities. The garden is growing. It's just, the summer is going well. I feel like it's going by really fast, but it's going really well. So I hope yours is the same. And while we haven't been doing our regular weekly episodes during the summer, I kind of hinted that we were working on some fun episodes that will come out a little less often during these busy summer months. And this is one of them. So this is kind of a mashup episode of some of the different interviews that we've done on the show with guests who are sharing the stories of their beginning farming journeys and some of the things that they encountered along the way. So if you are interested in starting farming and you don't know where to start, you want to hear maybe some solace or get some solace from folks who have been there, then this episode is going to be a good one for you. And I think that if you are a new listener, this will give you a really good idea of the types of stories that we're sharing here. And we've got little voices in the background because it's summer. But anyways, I think that for those of you who are starting from scratch or who are starting in maybe a unconventional way or trying to figure out how to get started, this is a great place to start. If you want to listen to the episodes in full, they're going to be linked in the show notes where you can grab them easily and can listen to the rest of that conversation that just a snippet of is shared here. If you enjoy this type of an episode, be sure to let me know, and we'll plan to do a couple more this summer on these specific topics. I appreciate you guys being here. Again, I hope your summer is just going really well. I hope that you guys are having a lot of productivity and getting all of the big things done and crossed off the list. Check in soon, and here's the episode. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. This week, I have Laura Hicks as my guest, and Laura grew up on cattle ranches between southeast Montana and the Sandhills of Nebraska, which is one of my favorite places to drive through. I think it's just so beautiful. She married her husband straight out of high school and started buying land and cattle in the best hard grass country of southwest South Dakota. They've enjoyed 31 years of marriage together, and her dad is a veterinarian. I think that's an important piece to include as we think about how your story unfolds, and I'm sure you'll talk about that more. And I love that you said this. You're grateful to still spend much of your time horseback at the south end of a north-facing cow. That's very well said. Yeah. And then I want you to tell us more about all the things you have going on, what your journey's been like, and we will be sure to talk about your books before we wrap up today. So, Laura, tell us about how you got to where you're at and what you're doing now.
Well, like you said, my dad is a veterinarian, so I've grown up on a ranch in a veterinary office most of my life. I mean, actually, my dad was working at a feedlot when he was at Kansas State University going to vet school. And he also worked at a ranch job. So he worked 2 jobs plus went to vet school with there's 3 girls at that time. So he had a full plate, and then he would just pack us kids. He would take us at different ones with him on the ranch job and just pack us on a horse with him. So I've been on a horse actually since before I could walk, and it's my happy place. I love I love to be horseback. So I went through that, and my dad is a vet, is a large animal vet predominantly. So growing up in the vet office a lot, we got to hang out and be a part of that. And then he leased a ranch up in southeastern Montana, a huge ranch. Like southeastern Montana, if you're familiar with it, it takes a lot of land to run cattle. It's just a little sparse up there. And so it was a big, big ranch. And we lived in a house that had no running water or electricity. There was 2 rooms and 7 of us lived there. No running water. We had an outhouse. We took a bath in the windmill tank, and we rode all day every day. That's what we did.
Oh, wow.
From the time I was 5 is when that started. We just were pretty much horseback all the time. Dad would kick us loose, like me with one of my older sisters, and we would have to check fence and check cows. And so I spent a lot of my early years, like you said, on the south end of a north-facing cow. And at 51, I still feel extremely blessed that I get to do. I sometimes pinch myself. It's hard. Ranching isn't easy. It's not easy, and I don't want to give that impression. But to get to do what you love so much and are so passionate about it, even on the days it's 30 below and you're like, gosh, oh, why do I have to pee out here so bad every time I'm feeding cows when it's 30 below? But I'm so grateful that I get to do this that sometimes I have to pinch myself. So, and then Mike and I married right out of high school, and he was on his family's place, but they had lost it due to some circumstances. And we started buying it back when we got married. And so we started from scratch. We really didn't have a choice. We didn't have cattle or land, either one. And we just started from scratch. And we ran a lot of other people's cattle for several years. We took in take-in cattle, and we calved for other people. And we busted our humps pretty hardcore. I mean, our bodies are feeling it at our age now because we hustled hard for what we wanted, but we believed in what we wanted. So we went after it hard. But we started with running other people's cattle and then just building our herd slowly. It's taken a lot of years to get where we are right now. And it still sometimes surprises both of us that where we are. We believed in the dream, but to get to this point is also really rewarding and also a little unbelievable.
Absolutely. That sounds, an incredible story. I'm trying to imagine a childhood like that. That sounds straight out of the books or the movies. To be off grid, that rural, and just doing it every day out there. That's pretty amazing. Um, and I completely agree on having to pee when it's negative whatever with wind chill, and you're like, why do these bibs not have a butt flap or something? Like,
Yep, exactly. And then the need is exponentially higher because you have all these buttons to get undone. So yes.
Why is it that way? But well, wow, it sounds like you've had a lot of really cool experiences in the industry. When you guys started off buying back your husband's family ground and taking in cattle, what was that experience like? Was there a lot of promise in the industry at that point, or were you told, don't do this, this is a bad idea?
No, we were actually, thankfully, we did have a very supportive banker. We went through FSA to get started and then also worked with a banker. And the banker was very supportive. And he didn't really tell us no. He just said, I can't promise you this is going to work. And I'm only going to go in so deep with you. And you're going to have to work hard. And I know he believed in us was the great part. He really did. We're so blessed to have a great bank still to this day that have pushed us. They have believed in us. The rest of the industry, we were young. I was 19, straight out of high school, just married. And it was kind of hard for a banker to take us on. And they did. And he just told us like 15 years into it, he goes, just so you know, I want you to know this now. I didn't want to tell you this in the beginning. People don't make this work the way you're doing it. Buying cows and land at the same time doesn't work, but you're doing it. And I said, well, I'm glad you didn't tell me that on day one. I might have given up. And he said, that's why I didn't tell you. As he said, I believed in you enough that I just wanted to give you a chance. So it was really rewarding that he believed in us enough.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I'm trying to imagine 19-year-olds in today's economy taking that risk. And it's like basically unheard of. I'm sure there's somebody doing it, but what a cool opportunity then to also get to buy back your husband's family ground.
So we started, the original farm was 225 acres, but a lot of it was wooded. And like I said, you have to evolve with the process. I think you have to be willing to abandon. You really have to be able to be honest with yourself. And like our mindset is we want the farm to work in whatever capacity that looks like. So if we have to evolve or we have to change our processes for the farm to be successful, it's not about any one person's vision or whatever else. So our initial plan was to come in 225 acres. This is a big logging community, hardwood community. And so we thought, well, we're going to have loggers come in and we're going to have them clear as much ground as possible. We're going to get paid for the timber. And then we're going to establish pastures and this and that. Well, we did not realize that the logging industry, just like in any other industry, you have good loggers and then you have not so good loggers. And we ended up with some not so good loggers. And so we're kind of like, well, this is not working out how we want. But we were kind of some of the first people to bring sheep into the area. And we were at one time known as the crazy sheep people because it's a primarily cattle, tobacco, and row crop area. And so, we brought, and then people started seeing what the sheep could do, and that we were out with them, and we were doing, we were maintaining. The sheep would get out, neighbors would call, we'd show up right away, and so then we had people start saying, well, if you guys like, you could use our property. We'd like somebody like an older, like we have an older couple. They're our neighbors. They're wonderful people, like family to us now, and some of our biggest cheerleaders. I mean, we run on their farm for nothing. They just want their farm to be a living thing. And then another gentleman, an older Mennonite fellow, who's from Michigan, actually, approached us and said, hey, would you guys be interested in leasing my farm? And we said, yes, we'd be interested in leasing it with an option to purchase at some point. Well, that came due, and now we own that farm. And then another farm next to it, they approached us and said, would you guys be in it? So it's one of those things that I think if you're doing the right things and, you do what you say you're going to do, people will approach you in most situations and want to be involved whatever way they feel comfortable being involved. And so that was kind of how we grew in that fashion, was people just literally approached us. And there's been situations that we've gotten into, which we shouldn't have, with people and using their operation and us running some sheep for them, as, the lines kind of got blurred there, and we've since exited those situations. But, yeah, I mean, we started at 225 and have kind of just expanded from there.
That's awesome. And that's great when you can do it just right close by with neighbors and people in your community that they have a need and you're able to benefit from it as well. Today, I'm here with Joseph Blakesley, and I'm very excited to speak to Joseph because he reached out to me to talk about his story and the story of their first generation farm and all the stuff that they have going on. You guys are located in New York, and as I understand it, you do some cattle, and then you're also getting ready to open a butcher shop or have opened. How's things going? Tell me where you are and how you got there.
Yeah, so we do a little bit of everything on the farming side. And then we also last year decided to build a custom exempt butcher shop. We got the main shop up and running right in time for deer season last year. And then we decided that wasn't going to be enough room. So we are currently putting another addition on the shop, more than doubling the size to house new coolers, new freezer, and our slaughter floor. So currently dealing with that. And then, the spring rush with just farming in general, putting cows out on pasture and getting fences fixed and piglets and We've got goats and sheep, chickens, meat chickens. We do meat rabbits. So, all the spring flush of babies coming in, gets a little chaotic.
Awesome. Well, was this always the dream to own a farm and have a butcher shop, or how did things evolve over time?
Yeah. So ever since, young little guy, anyone would ask me, most kids are like, I want to be a fireman or a police officer, some extravagant job. I just wanted to be a farmer. That was my number one thing in life. I just always, I didn't grow up on a farm. My great grandparents on both sides of my family had farms, but I never grew up around that. I just had a natural draw to the farm. Um, and that's just one thing. I always wanted to have a farm. And then getting into high school, I lived in a very small town. We didn't have we had one stop sign in the whole town. We didn't have stores. We didn't have anything. And the only job you could do was there was a local dairy farm. So I got a job there working with my friends, and we worked pretty much full-time hours through high school. And I loved it. I couldn't trade that job for anything. The bosses were great and stuff. And then I just kind of getting out of high school, I still kept part-time farm jobs. And then in 2015, me and my wife, we bought our first piece of property and started more homesteading than farming. We started out with a few chickens like everybody does. Then we got into dairy goats, started raising pigs, and then we got into meat chickens. And then with that, I wanted to learn how to process my own animals. So I started watching YouTube and just kind of teaching myself the basics. And then a local processor, kind of semi-local to us, was looking for people to come and work. So I applied there. It took a little while to get hired. And then once I got in there, it was a natural passion for the processing side of it. I took really fast to it. And I just really enjoy it. I really enjoy taking that live animal and turning it into really nice, beautiful cuts for people to enjoy. And I left that job a couple of years back and got into a couple different things, and then was approached by my now business partner about possibly starting a custom exempt shop of our own. And this is where we're at. So I've been doing most of the work pretty much myself. We hired out some of the steel work and concrete work, but the electrical and plumbing and everything else I've been doing on my own on top of the farm. And then when we first started building this, I had a full-time job also. So yeah.
That's awesome. It sounds like quite the journey. Lots of opportunities to learn along the way. Let's dive in a little bit more to the farm side of things before we talk more about the butcher shop, because I'm excited to learn more about that. I'm not very familiar with all the things that go into that. So I think people will be really excited to hear. So you said you guys started with chickens and you got into some dairy goats. What was the goal as you guys started acquiring more of those different livestock, and where were you planning to head with that? What was kind of the trajectory?
My number one goal, growing up, we're pretty much poor. We had a large family, not a lot of income coming in. And my main goal with the farm is to produce the best quality food I can for my family. We are at the point that we produce 100% of our own meats. We don't currently garden just because I am strapped for time. And as everyone knows that gardens, there is a lot. Most people that haven't started gardening yet, they're like, oh, how hard can it be? It's just plants. It's not just plants. You got to weed and take care of it. And I don't have the time. I know I don't have the time. So I haven't gardened in probably 2 or 3 years. But my brother, he bought our old place and he gardens. So we just kind of trade. So that kind of works out for us. But yeah, the main goal was to put out the best quality food I could for my family. And then we started just raising extra food for family and friends. And it's kind of just slowly grown from there. I just have a passion on putting farm fresh products in people's tables. So
Absolutely. It's always an interesting conversation when somebody says that they started homesteading or farming to feed their family, because it's a very different approach than starting a business. You look at things differently. You look at like what's the quality of what we're going to eat. You know, what variety do we ourselves want to have on hand throughout the year, that kind of stuff. And I love the conversation because I think it's different for everybody. But some people will say, you know, I can't afford to eat our own meat because I sell it and it's more profitable for me to sell the meat than for us to eat it.
Yep.
And then some people are like, no, we eat it all ourselves and then we sell if we have extra. So, what kind of led you to that kind of line of thinking of deciding that it was going to be for your family first?
We just had when we started out, we only had 4 acres, and probably a quarter of an acre was taken up by a pond. So we were limited on what we could raise anyway. Um, and that my first goal going into it was just raising enough for my family, and then it kind of got into, okay, we have extras and we have the space to raise a couple more pigs or a few more chickens. And then in 2021, um, I set I have a tendency, I set goals for myself, and my goal was to own a larger piece of property so I could grow the farm by the time I was 30. And we hit that goal the year that I turned 30. That I think we closed on the new property in the house 2 or 3 weeks before my birthday. Um, so I was super excited, and it wasn't our current property we're on. It wasn't a farm, so we downsized on the animals. We kind of got rid of a lot of the stuff that I had, and I focused on just clearing pastures and getting fences up. And I do temporary fences until I get a lay of the land, because I've made that mistake before, spent a bunch of money on permanent fencing, and it's not in the right spot, or you don't really, it's wet. And which I'm glad that we didn't do that here, because uh, we we have a lot of springs, natural springs and stuff. So now that I know where they're at, I'm gonna redo some work where my fences and stuff are. But yeah, that was the main goal. Was my first goal was to raise food for us, and then I kind of got to the point where, okay, I can take on a couple extra pigs, and then I don't go light on anything. So, and I'm a stickler for a good deal. My wife constantly hounds me about it, but the guy that I was buying my piglets from, I started out with fall piglets, which is harder up here, especially in New York with the winter weather and stuff. Western New York, we get hit pretty hard. But that's when the piglets were the cheapest. So that's when I kind of got into it. And the guy had a bunch of extra piglets, and he's like, I'll give you a great deal if you take all of them. So I think like the third year I raised feeder pigs, I ended up with 11. Like I went from 2 pigs to 4 pigs to 11 pigs really fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it kind of just like, and I had a lot of interest in it, and I still do. Like last growing season, I raised 9 feeder pigs. Yeah, so we just kind of slowly been growing as we get more business. I'd say 98% of our business is just family and friends.
Mhm.
So
Which is great. I mean, those are the people you want to feed most. So that's awesome. We have a great guest today. Her name is Brenna Beard, and I'm really excited to share her story with you. Brenna is a beginning farmer and has a great story to share of kind of what that journey has looked like for her. So, Brenna, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us more about who you are, how you got to this point, and what's going on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lexi. So my name's Brenna Beard. I am from central-ish Indiana. Grew up on the farm. I have a very unique and probably different story than most, a little unconventional, if you will, but um, growing up, grew up on the farm, but also, sometimes in life your parents don't work out, right? And so I actually moved away from the farm, and then, was still heavily involved when I went to go see my dad and whatnot, but grew up and was heavily involved in showing livestock, had a huge passion for that, and just helping out and being on the farm. I always loved it. I have several siblings, older brothers, we just were hooligans on the farm. But graduated from high school thinking my whole life I wanted to be a nurse and realized that was not for me. And so then I went to Purdue and I studied ag sales and marketing, which is essentially an agribusiness degree, and ended up kind of in the seed sales side of the world and had an internship there, a couple internships before that. But that really opened the door to, the eyes of what the ag industry as a whole, the opportunities were. So then I took an opportunity out in North Dakota for about 3 years, selling seed as a Pioneer territory manager. So I oversaw a group of Pioneer sales reps. Still enjoy talking to those guys when I get a chance. But nothing beats being back close to home. So I had an opportunity with my company, Corteva AgriScience, to move back and jump in both feet, not knowing much about the crop protection side of the business. So I have been back closer to home since 2020. I'm back in the heat of COVID, and have enjoyed my role ever since. But just now on my third season of farming. So there's a little bit of, I can't farm if I live in North Dakota and I have a full-time job and I need a full-time job for my farm to be successful. So in my third season of farming, just wrapped up. I just started with 35 acres my first year, and they were not in the same field. I had a 17-acre patch over here and an 18-acre patch over here. So did he give me probably the lowest quality of ground? Maybe, perhaps, but it's been fun, like learning as I go, obviously, just what I can do to improve that ground and improve year after year too.
Yeah, got to start somewhere. So, corn on that ground then?
Yeah, so I started with corn my first year. So I did corn only my first year on both of those pieces. And then into my second year is when I started a corn and soybean rotation. And I went from 35 acres to 75 acres my second year. So it was nice to be able to have some flexibility and change and learn how to grow a corn crop and how to learn how to grow a soybean crop for the first time. Of course, I had experience because of my full-time job in management practices and whatnot. And then also, dad's 2 cents on things too.
Yeah, that's good to have. So you said that you kind of doubled your acres there that second year. Is that been just something you were able to do and work out with your dad to kind of slowly increase, or how has that worked for you guys? Do you have a official transition plan in place, or what are the next steps be?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of behind the scenes things too, not just dad, kind of the whole family. So I had to talk with other family members and express my intentions of what I'm trying to do with the farm. I think that's honestly the best thing that I would advise anyone getting started is, you know, if you do have the opportunity with family, just make your intentions very clear of what your vision is and what you want to do with it. So I think I did that and went about it the right way to where those family members took me seriously and were willing to take a chance on me. So I am very thankful that they, believed in me, but I had to make my intentions just super clear on what I wanted to do and how it was going to work with me having a full-time job and just doing it on the side, because in a lot of ways that's kind of unheard of for people to do in traditional sense. Yeah.
It's always like an intricate web of people's emotions and what everybody wants or thinks should happen when it's family ground involved. Is that something you had to continue to navigate and plan for?
Yeah, I think it's something I gotta navigate just about every day. Oh, I feel like that's everybody though. Just we have a big family. And so just navigating that and just making sure I'm very clear again on what I want to do and, I've definitely been assertive on what I want, but I also have to realize, a lot of change all at once is not palatable to some people like it is maybe for me because I'm always just thinking of what I can do next, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an exciting opportunity that you've got to be able to come back and farm. What are some of the things that you have enjoyed the most about being back and getting started on your farming journey?
Some of the most exciting things have been I did purchase my first piece of family farm ground. So I was really excited, really proud. That's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. So kind of wrapping that all up, but kind of the anticipation of it happening. But it's been fun to just kind of start to really see how I want to do things. Your family, when you're in a family farm, there's always opinions and, dads do things a certain way. And I think it's just been fun figuring out what I want to do for each crop. Those decisions, there's a lot that goes into making decisions on the farm. And so it's been really exciting just working with like my local suppliers too, kind of brainstorming ways that I can improve that maybe my dad hadn't thought about. So I really like that to where I can start to maybe implement some things and he can see where, I'm having success. And I think that just sense of, hey, Dad, maybe we could do things this way. It's exciting, but it's also, sometimes a big stressor also. But I would say that's probably been one of the most exciting things. And just the thought of really what I envision for the farm. I get really excited about that. I can't get ahead of myself. But it's exciting to watch that all come to fruition. I've only been doing this 3 years now, but I think back to my first year and I wouldn't have imagined at year 3 I would be where I'm at. So it's fun to look back, but it's also really fun and exciting to kind of look ahead to see, what the future potentially could look like with it too. So
If you've enjoyed spending time with us today, please take a moment to review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or join the conversation on social media. Do you have a topic you would like to discuss or know someone with a story to share? Apply to be a guest on the podcast at farmingonpurpose.com. You can follow the host of Farming on Purpose, Lexi, on your favorite social media platforms for more content by searching for Farming on Purpose. And remember, if you look around your table and aren't inspired by the people there, it's time to find a new seat.